All right, good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks, Dawn. This is jubilant. Good morning. So we are here this morning at Unity of Springfield for our Sunday morning adult education class. And you might have been expecting to see Wendy up here this morning. But Wendy was having a week of her physical body not feeling the greatest. And so she's just going to bless us with her thoughts at a later date. And so I jumped in, and we'll just continue our conversation on the weeks of Advent. And this week is the fourth week of Advent, which means we get to talk about love, um, and the love that is born in us. And so if we remember, if you've been joining us, or if you haven't, for Unity, Advent is not about awaiting for an event outside of us to happen, but a reminder that there is an unfolding of the Christ nature within us that is occurring always, and especially is commemorated by this nativity story and this journey at the end of the year. So love isn't something that we're waiting for. Love isn't something that we have to earn. It's a divine nature that's awakening and expressing through us. And then a reminder that also in Unity, Christ is not merely born in history, but is continually being born in consciousness. And so love is the womb in which the Christ idea was formed and expressed. So there's a few things when you look up like metaphysical meaning of love during Advent for Unity. And so one of the things that obviously comes up is love is the harmonizing power of divine mind. And there's several quotes, Charles Fillmore and others who talked about, love is all there is, right? Love is the core of who we are and the expression of that divine mind. It's the harmonizing power. It brings everything together. And this next statement, when I first read it, I thought, oh, that's a good statement for us to kind of dig into. So the second is that love is impersonal, unconditional, and creative. So when we hear that, love is impersonal, unconditional, and creative. Does anyone have a good thought that comes to mind or something that helps them have that deeper understanding of love that Unity teaches, or how you would describe that to someone else? Wendy?
Well, hello.
Oh.
We need some volume. Just ABC it. Can you hear me now? Can you?
Hello. 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 Testing. 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 Hello. Maybe I can just talk loud. Hello. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Testing. Testing. Testing.
Maybe your battery's dead.
I'm not sure it's like it's not communicating.
Hello.
John, if you maybe would go grab Lisa, and then Wendy, just if you want to talk loud for now, and then
I will do that. So, there's two things about love that one is experience and one is something that I read. And the one that I read, I wish I could remember the name. There are books that I love that I write in my own words. Their words in my own words. But anyway, he's a very fundamental Christian gentleman. Beautiful book. And part of the name is beautiful, the bold, the something, and the beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But he says, sin is not something we do that we need to overcome. It is every moment that we spend out that not in love. Not in love. And the other one is, I've told you sometimes that my son who crossed came. And he said what the thing he said to me, and my mother when she crossed and came back said, "Only love is waiting." My son said to me, he said, "Mom," he said, anything that there was, I had a lot of anger and was going to do some stuff to justice, you know,
Yeah.
and he just said, "Mom, it is a waste of your life. Every moment in our lives that are not spent in love," he said, "is a waste of your life. You're wasting
Beautiful.
something wonderful." So that's what I know about love.
Beautiful.
She went home and burned all her evidence.
I did.
Well, I did.
Lisa, I'm in. Oh no,
I think you went on. Was that it? You sound like you did something there.
Well, that was mine. I had
All right.
flipped my cardigan over and it was muffling me for a second. But yeah, damn.
I'd like to refer a little bit to what Fillmore talked about regarding love and transcendence. So much of the idea of love should be how we transcend ourselves beyond who we think we are to how we want to reflect that idea of transcendence. A lot of what inspired, I think, Fillmore a great deal, and I saw that when I went to the library there at Unity Village, was the idea of his inspiration of how we are to transcend ourselves. And how do we best do that in unity with the environment in which we live? I think Fillmore was really greatly, that idea in Kansas City, first with his church, and then as they fed people, that was a big part of their unity mission, was to feed people and bring them some comfort. But we are an expression of that. Love is not something out here, something is from within that we convey. And that is that idea of transcendence. And that's what Fillmore tried to relay, I think, and what my takeaway was unity that he felt that everyone shared that was universal, that love was there for us to grasp onto, and then once we have it, we have to give it away.
Nice. Yeah. So, and I think it's for me, when I was breaking that down, so love is impersonal, unconditional, and creative. I thought if you just stop with the impersonal, love is impersonal. That's the part that really kind of at first goes, ooh, love is impersonal? I don't know if I like that. And you really have to weigh that out. So by adding that unconditional and creative, there's a little bit where you go, oh, okay. That makes a little bit more, that makes more sense, or it starts to make more sense, and I can start to lean into that a little bit better. The next phrase was love dissolves fear, separation, resentment, and judgment. And so looking at unity through the Advent story, or the unity perspective through the Advent story. Oh, Mitch to the rescue. Yay, we have our microphone working.
Thank you, Mitch.
Yes, thank you, Mitch. I think during shelter season, when it's getting packed away and back, it's going back and forth, sometimes cords get put in different spots. So in the traditional Advent story, we see Mary as the one who says yes to the birth of Christ, right? She has this and she says yes to the whole story. So she's representing our receptive heart, and that's our willingness to say yes to divine love becoming manifest through us, becoming flesh through us, becoming this, expressing through this human body and experience. And Mary says in Luke 1:38, let it be with me according to your word. And so that metaphysical interpretation is that this is what happens when we consent to that, when we say, yes, my soul, my being is consenting to that love that is desiring to express through my human experience into this world. And so by that, and really the whole Advent story through the unity perspective and metaphysical interpretation, is that it's not just a story about some people a long, long time ago, right? It's the story of us every day. It's the story of each and every one of us and our journey to find this place where we say yes to love. And so each time we choose love over fear, or compassion over a reaction, or presence over making a judgment, that's how Christ is born again and again in each of us in those small moments. And so talking about love as a creative and healing force, so that was part of that. Love is impersonal, unconditional, and creative. Oh yeah, Dawn. Sorry.
What you said a while ago about the can I get it closer? What you said about merely it being not just an historical event that would soon be forgotten. If it isn't universal, it doesn't apply today, it has no worth at all. It's just like anybody else coming and going, and being just one of the crowd. Jesus came and was universal in that he is still currently present in history and will always be for that reason. And that's what gives him the value.
Right, because it was really, it's about the birth of Jesus. It's also about the birth of a new conscious perspective, like the unfolding of human consciousness in a different way. And so, yes, so that is the story endures and the message endures because each person, there is that resonance of truth in hearing this journey. Yeah, Wendy. Oh, sorry, Dan, did you have?
I did.
I'm not doing a great job this morning.
The difference between taking the love, the thing we're talking about is waking up to the Christ within and Jesus and what Jesus is teaching, is I can be a person that loves and wants to love, but if I don't awaken that creative spiritual part within it, I'd go to Codependence Anonymous for a long time to learn that how I was loving the world was not love. It was not love. And when I listen, when you awaken that inside of you, and then you love, you listen. And sometimes the answer is leave them alone. Don't do that. Leave them alone, or just see them as whole and stay out of the rest of it, or give them more. So when it's spirit led and when it's from the Christ within, then I don't know what anybody needs. I don't have their answers. I don't know, but spirit knows and directs that love into amazing ways.
Yeah, Dan.
Well, what Joseph Campbell taught us was primarily, as in the study of mythology and cultures historically, was that there was a universal flow that we have consciousness that we are to tap into, and that is love, and it is universal. And no one owns love. That we are all a part of something much bigger than ourselves. And in his study of cultures historically, this idea of a universal flow of love that transcends us, that we are to tap into, that has predominantly been present from really the beginning of time. It's that feeling of that we are a part of so much more than who we think we are, and we are to go there. Whatever it takes, we are to go there and get all the monkey mind, whatever you want to call it, out of the way, because we have a challenge to find that. And the greater the challenge, the more the reward. And that was the main thing that he did. I think so much of looking at his work and what he embodied as far as studying cultures and mythology. Mythology over time means so much to being an understanding of what that sense of love, how it is expressed, and how we are to move in the direction that takes us there. And I think for me, the idea of what it means to be in love means to be in love first with yourself, and then to be able to move that out of ourselves into the universe.
Yeah, nice. So what I was going to say about the creative and healing aspects of love, part of that is, there was another class we did and it talked about kind of love as your superpower. And so these phrases make me think of this too. I can just see it. It's like a superpower that we wield. So like love dissolves resentment. Love restores harmony. Love changes perception before it changes conditions. And so in that way, if we bring that into situations, and I know we've all had experiences where we were feeling anger or resentment or jealousy or whatever that was. And if you can get to that place where you are seeing it through the eyes of love as truth within you, do not all those things just kind of fall away? They cannot exist in the same space as pure divine love, because divine love is impersonal, unconditional, and creative. So you can't have a divine love that is feeling resentment or a divine love that is feeling anger. And so we can know that, again, we're not making any of those things bad or wrong, just understanding that if those things are existing, then we are not truly in the flow of the transcending love, the divine love, because it dissolves those things, and those things cannot coexist. Yeah, Don.
The sages always tell us that only God is real, only God, and that is love, and everything is a continuum proceeding from that, and anything that is not God is less than, and is merely an unfocused reality. It's a, if it's pure, it is divine. If it's not pure, it's not divine. Or is that degree of, but it's only this one thing that is reality, and that is God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of our co-founders, Myrtle Fillmore, she has a quote that says, "There is no problem so big that it cannot be solved by love." And then kind of what Wendy was talking about, unity distinguishes love from sentimentality, so Charles Fillmore said, "Love is the power that joins and binds in divine harmony the universe and everything in it." And that it's not dependent on behavior. So goes back to that impersonal, unconditional part, that love isn't dependent on behavior. So if we feel that we have to act in a certain way or be a certain way or do a certain thing to be deserving of love, then it's not divine love we're seeking, right? It's some other kind of sentimentality or conditional based love. It's not dependent on agreement or circumstance. It's just our natural state. It just is. It is there for us at all times. Yeah, John.
So I've struggled sometimes with, this whole personal and impersonal, and also spent a lot of time going to, this, all the different connotations that love can have to make it, very, a four-letter word, if you will. And, but what really was striking me in terms of what was a big personal turn was when I sensed that I was beloved, which was a real personal experience, and yet it was, the reason I was able to receive it was because it was unconditional. And then found that it could go right through me to be gifted to that around. And for me, that was a personal game.
Yeah.
Well, I think a great lesson in personal love is the environment in which we live. In your dog, your cat, for me, my chickens. Love is not something just personal among people. Love is how you treat your environment in which you live. Why people grow flowers. Why gardening is such a tremendous hobby for many people. Because it is a way for people to express themselves to the environment in such a way that it is impersonal. And I think that's really a great value. I really appreciate what John said, because love is impersonal. And a part of that is to be able to receive love as well. And we see that with a dog or a cat or chickens or whatever it is. There is an impersonal sense of transcendence again between us and our environment. It's critical. Why the problems of global warming become so paramount. Why how we treat nature, how we think about recycling, how we think about our impact, our footprint, as they say, is an expression of love. Because it's not just between me and you or whoever. It's how we act with our daily activity that shows that we have found that fault. Where we don't have to think about it. That's the important aspect of it. Because it's who you are. Mm-hmm. That is really the important thing to think about. It's not just something you wear on your shirt sleeve or whatever. It becomes a transmittal of that back and forth. I really like the
Well, yeah, because it's also the acknowledgement of oneness, right? Like
right.
if we have a true, deep understanding and connection to oneness, then how we interact with in every moment with every piece of this experience,
and that
is rippling out to something.
And that is
true
meditation. Else. Meditation is not something you just spend an hour on every day. Meditation is how you live every moment of the day. Mm-hmm. And that love that you can transmit comes back many-fold. It's how you act and how it comes back to you. And I think this season that we live as you think about Christmas and giving. Giving isn't just giving presents. It's an expression of who we are that becomes so important. And our gift is something, not just something taken off the shelf, but us that we respect the giver, who we're giving it to, enough to acknowledge them for who they are.
Yeah.
That is the true gift.
Yep, Wendy's got something, and then I think Gary had something.
Just an example of when you're talking about it's not personal. Love is not personal. So with COVID in 2020, my fear of losing my husband was huge in my face. Okay. I was a protective bear because, elderly gentlemen were the first real major casualties. But in looking at that, I really got to look at, he's just recently turned 95, and I love him so much. And yet, when we're talking about this, God's love is not personal. In some ways, that love is not a godly love, simply because, there's that part of me that is felt so alone in this world. To finally meet somebody who knows you, it is so easy to be with him. And I am not alone. For the first time in my life, I'm not alone. And do you see, when I make it personal, it's just going to cause me pain. It's going to cause me pain because I can lose him. But when it's a godly love, which is what I've been working for, I don't want him to stay a minute longer than he wants to, because I want him to be free. The godly love says that, and the godly love says, everything I feel with him, I can feel about all the rest of you. And do you see, that's the difference. And I'm really getting into it. Not got a perfect yet, guys, but that's the godly love. Doesn't need him to have it in my life.
Yeah, right. Oh, yes, Steve.
As I understand it, God neither judges or condemns. He doesn't care the impersonal part, because if he cared, he would condemn us all. And so we're all condemnable, all right? But we're all lovable, everyone. The whole situation for me in life was, I had to learn not to forgive you, but to forgive me for having put you in a position of feeling that my power and my personal life depended on you doing something to satisfy me. Because it had nothing to do with what was going on. And I'm not to say that whoever was or did do something wasn't doing it to personally gain from it. That's not the issue. My issue is never that the other person is wrong. It is me wronging myself by allowing to think of myself less than who I truly am. And so I have to, and in order for me to love you, I have to love me first. I just have to. And so I have to forgive me for having put into my life the feeling of inadequacy that demanded that I find a leader, okay? Because I am my own leader. And that was hard to get to. So, love all of it.
Yeah. Love is a state of being, not a mood. Yeah.
I have been.
It's just not as loud today.
Okay. I have been online, and Don was a little bit quiet, then he says, oh yeah, I gotta do this. So one of the things that ties in with what Wendy said is taking it personal is in the 4 agreements, the first agreement is to be impeccable with your word. The second agreement is not to take it personal. And he says that, nobody has your paradigm. Nobody's coming from where you're coming from. So nobody can totally understand you. And I kind of take that in the spirit. I think you can. But if you don't take anything personally, then you live in love. And that was his whole thing about, if you don't take it personal, you know that whatever somebody is saying, it's about them. It's not about you. And so you learn not to take it personal, and then you don't get into that suffering. You don't get into that sphere of, you can stay in the now, in the love, because you're not taking it personal. And that book is so powerful for that reason, because it explains that, and it puts it in a perspective where you can see where it comes from.
Yeah. I was thinking, as you were saying that, I was thinking also of, so it's not taking it personally, and then also the not placing expectations. Like when you can have the realization that no one is obligated to perform in the way that you expect them to perform, and that if your love is conditioned to whether or not they are performing in the ways that you expect them to perform, that's not divine love, right? It kind of all goes hand in hand in my brain. That was a big one for me, because I feel like growing up, I had a lot of people in my life who loved me very much and also placed a lot of expectation on me. And I've worked through all of that with all of them, and with myself. But that was kind of the norm for me, was like the people who love you the most have the most expectations of you. And it just kind of went hand in hand. And so coming to, I was studying other things before coming to Unity. So I was kind of started on the path, but then Unity really just broke it open for me. And it was like, oh yeah, that's not, that's not going to create happiness and connectedness if all relationships are based on, I have these expectations, I need you to follow these expectations, I need you to be doing these things, and then I can shower you with love. That's not a healthy thing. That's not a healthy place to be. And so relationships are so much different now, and so much more loving now than ever before. When and I can catch myself. I was thinking, Lisa and I just had a moment last week. I think just the stress of the season and everything, we had a moment where both of us, our expectations got in the way in a conversation, and it got really strained really fast, and we kind of went away, and then a few minutes later came back, and it was like, what was that? Who were those people? Because that's not us at all. And so we had a little moment. It was like, oh my gosh, here's what was going on in my head. And she's like, this is what I was thinking. And then it got a little tense again for a minute because we got back in our personal feels. And then it was like, oh my gosh, release that. This is not what it is. But it was so, I love those moments in some ways, because it reaffirms that, oh yes, this path that we've chosen in a different way it always feels so much better. But if we get off track, or if we have those moments in humanness, how quickly we can notice, well, that wasn't me being loved. That was something else getting in the way. And let's unpack that for a minute and let's throw it out and move past it, so that we're not building, because in past relationships that would have led to putting that in the resentment bucket, and then I'm going to carry it around with me, and then the next time something comes up, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, and that argument's still sitting in the bucket too, I haven't forgotten about that. And right, but we know that carrying around that bucket of things that we've taken personally, or resentments or fears or all of these things, we're not carrying around a bucket of love by doing that. Yeah, John.
Yeah, I love where you were going with that, because I think we could do a whole class just on barriers to unconditional love. And I what comes to my mind is a combination of kind of the Buddhist practices, and also of the Abraham, getting into the flow and letting it, allowing it to occur, and letting go of, and being in a non-judgmental stance, to just allow love, but the practicality in terms of practical spirituality with unity is the whole piece of that's where we learn about love is when we're knocking our heads up against
Yeah.
the frustration of not experiencing.
Yeah. And feeling that where you're like, this doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like truth to me. This isn't who I am. Like, how do I get out of this moment? Like, what thought do I need to change? And what, like, coming to peace to get through it. Yeah.
One of the things I learned, and it was a real almost epiphany, is when I was teaching in China, and as a teacher, having expectations of my students. Because it changes the whole dynamics. Because my job as a teacher was to bring out within them their best attributes that they may not see themselves. And so expectation can have many different meanings. And I think for me, that was a great learning tool. Because if others are looking to you to provide them some avenue to see within themselves a path or way they should go, then it gives them an idea, oh, that's what I should do. And I think expectations have it can have negative things within family, with our family, particularly this time of year, Christmas
Yep.
and getting together and expectations of past nonsense, whatever. But expectations are important because within ourselves, what is it we expect out of ourselves that is our highest attribute? And who do we communicate with that help to bring forth those sense of what's within us that maybe we've overlooked or we haven't seen that maybe we should?
Yeah, I think for me it was shifting the expectation to I expect people to be exactly who they are and to know what they need in each moment, and to when your expectations are, I just expect you to be following whatever guidance you're being given, and it might not make sense to me, but I can support you in that, versus, well, here's what I think would the best course of action would be, and all of that. So like it's more the expecting and validating that you are a divine being having your own spiritual journey in this human realm. And so my only expectation, what I strive for, is that my expectations of people are very much just like, you're being exactly who you are, and I'm going to celebrate that. Yeah, Wendy.
So in the Abraham teachings, and actually in the group yesterday, so in Abraham they talk about allowing, and to me what allowing means is allowing love, allowing. But Abraham said allowing is not synonymous with tolerating what you don't want or don't like. Allowing is allowing your connection with Source. Again, we're talking about the greater love, the love, allowing that Source and above and beyond anything. And then you make choices on how to keep that flowing in your life, which might sometimes mean letting go of something that doesn't work anymore, or letting go of an idea about another person, what they need to be for you, or, but that connection to Source is the most important love affair, and then passing that on.
My daughter went to teaching school, and one of the examples that was, I believe one of the examples that was given to her was there was an experiment done where the teacher was told that she had the brightest and the best students in the school. They had handpicked this class for her. And she went through the year, believing that these children were the brightest and the best. And at the end of the year, they had excelled beyond anything that anybody had imagined. And she found out, and they finally told her that she had the dumbest. They had picked the lower end of the spectrum and given them to her, but told her that she had the brightest and the best. And because that was her expectation of those kids, that was what she felt. You know, when she was teaching them, she expected them to excel, and they did. So expectations can be a very interesting turn of events. And I think that Jesus expected people to receive the healing, and he saw them as whole, and so they felt that, and you can tell when you're with someone if you just kind of drop into yourself, you can kind of feel where they are, and so you can match that. And I think that is one of the positive things about expectations is if you expect people, like Wendy's example of the guy that said, would you move over a little bit so I can shove my cart into you? And she's like expecting heaven, and it all turned out amazing. And so I think that expectation of expecting heaven is going to bring us to a higher place.
Yeah, nice. Yep. Don and then John.
John and then John. Yeah. Getting back to what Dan was saying, I think it's very true. There's a difference between expecting conduct and expecting performance from the students. It's a totally different thing. It's a totally different aspect. If you expect people to do well, they will do well. If you expect them to live up to your standards, you're well off base. That's a totally different thing.
Yeah.
And I see some limitation in the word expectation, because to me, it starts to limit it. And I like to practice when I see people as being source, unlimited possibility. Mm-hmm. And then that's just what I see, and try to communicate vibrationally. And then without me putting expectations about what those possibilities are.
Yeah, nice. So I want to go to so what Wendy was talking about as far as I had a section on here about love and boundaries, and so that love is a strength, not a self-sacrifice, and that if we think about that, so divine love is wise and empowering. It's not meant to be self-erasing, right? Like we are still we're unique expressions, and so it's not to erase that from ourselves or from others in the pursuit of divine love. It is empowering that as we are coming from a place of divine love, we are immersed in a wise and empowering energy that can allow us to be exactly ourselves in a unique way, and that all of those expressions are beautiful. And so I wrote, Unity doesn't teach martyrdom, it teaches conscious expression. And so that's where those boundaries and understanding that we don't have to, love doesn't have to be overgiving. It doesn't have to be that self-neglect kind of love that maybe some of us experience as the example as we grew up, or we see examples of that around us. Yeah, Susan?
Well, as far as examples growing up, and this has come to mind a lot during this conversation today. Hang on, I got it. thank you, Dr. Spock. Spare the rod, spoil the child. You know, the stuff that our parents were taught was ideal behavior. It, it spurs on the education of the whole planet, but it also adds a little
Yeah.
and yeah.
Yeah. So, oh, yeah.
When we adopted our daughter Emily from an orphanage in China, she was 6 years old and had not gone to any schooling whatsoever. And she had reached the age where if she wasn't adopted, they weren't sure what would happen to her because she was already 6. We brought her over and put her right into the 2nd grade. We had expectations of her. She had no idea what English was. She knew Chinese, but we had expectations of her doing her best. Whatever that meant, she was only to do her best. In South Florida, they put all the foreign kids in class with everybody else so they would learn English along with everybody else. And she took her a year to learn English, but they always had a sense, doesn't matter, just do your best. There's no other expectation other than you've done that. And it was a great learning experience for all of us because I had to think what would have happened to this little girl if she would have stayed in China, if she would not have been adopted, with at that age many of them were. She went on. She's now got 3 degrees, college degrees, and most intelligent person I've ever known. But it's really amazing when you have expectations. What does that mean? There was like a plateau of understanding that you have with other people as far as expectations that you bring forth within them what is best within them. And that is what we are to do. And I think that is one of the biggest strengths of unity. When we come here and we talk to people and people see what we're doing, when I tell people I'm in unity, it's like, wow, oh, okay. What does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? Well, it means we help to bring about the best attributes of everyone. Not that I'm better than you, but you in many cases may be better than me in some things, but there's certain expectations we have that unity teaches that we try to use to transcend our weaknesses into what our strengths are, and that's what unity helps us to do. If you really look at the teachings of the Fillmores, and you look at the early history of what unity meant, and you look at that idea of expectations, I think that is one of the greatest strengths that we don't talk enough about, that we should, because it's how we go about our day that people say, oh, that's what that means. And I think the comments here reflect that too.
Yeah. So we're nearing the end. So I do want to go back to this boundaries thing because I think this is one of the things that I know when coming into Unity, becoming a student of Unity, and this idea of love. I think it is really easy in our humanness, and it especially early on as we're discovering these things, to get kind of into this whole, like, into the self-erasing or the well, if I'm showing up as love, then it's like a becoming passive. Like I take a step back and if I'm showing as love, then I'm not going to be arguing with anyone, or I'm not going to be disagreeing with anyone, or all of those things. I think that's an easy trap to kind of get into. But if we look at this love as the strength that uplifts and sustains us, and it is wise and empowering and not self-erasing, then we can really dive into how boundaries become an expression of love and not separation. And so when we can stand firm in what we see as love, and we stand firm in what we believe for, and we are not afraid to express what we need and desire out of our experience, that is truly the connection, and the oneness can be built in that. Because when we are in this self-erasing martyrdom, well, then we're creating separation, right? Because it doesn't feel good. Like we're telling ourselves, oh, that's how I express love, but then it's not feeling good. And so you're like, well, why does love feel so crummy? Why does being love, why does, if I'm supposed to be showing up as love, then why am I feeling like this? And it's because we're in that little trap. And so some of the things that when I was looking up, like talking of reminders, especially around the holidays, like Dan was saying, of things that, love and boundaries and being a strength. And so practical applications is, knowing that you can say no without guilt. You can just say no because something doesn't sound fun, or it doesn't seem like it's for you, or you just don't feel like it's yours to do today. You can just say no, and that's a complete sentence, no, period, and you can move on, and you don't have to sit and wallow in guilt about that. If there are relationships that do not support your highest good, especially this is talking about the holidays, like even if you still feel you need to spend some time around that energy, like you can limit the time. If you recognize that as a relationship that drains my energy and doesn't allow me to stay in my centeredness, you don't have to spend hours there. You don't have to go to the dinner. You don't have to show up to the thing. Or you can, and you can say, I am here as an expression of love, and I will stay for exactly however many minutes my being can tolerate being in this space, and then I will happily say, and now I have something else I need to go do, and I will move on from this experience. And when you're choosing peace over people pleasing, or choose peace over people pleasing. So looking for ways that you can show up as that expression. Brene Brown has some really great stuff around boundaries, and how, when you think about it, she talks about that sometimes, setting a boundary is the kindest, most loving thing you can do with people, because then everyone knows what's going on at that point. But if you're like not spending time with someone because of something that they're saying or doing that you can't, if you never tell them that, then you're foregoing any opportunity for them to say, oh, that's not how I want to show up with you. I want you in my life. So I want to work this out where we can both feel good in this. If you just go, oh, no, I'm just going to avoid you, or I'm, not going to speak to you with love. But if you say, I just really have when we're having conversations, I really feel this way because this thing, whatever. Like I said, you give them the opportunity to say, oh, I don't have to talk about that, or I don't, that's not something that I ever intended. And then you can have an actual connection conversation and get to a place where you can both assert some boundaries within the relationship. And then maybe that becomes one of the strongest relationships you have. And when I think back over my life and with people, those are the strongest relationships I have, is the people who weren't afraid to say, like that really, I don't know if that's how I believe, or I don't know if that's a conversation that I want to keep having over and over again, or I have a boundary in my life that here's my line. Well, then everybody knows kind of where those boundaries are, and can be like, oh yeah, I'm going to respect that because I respect you. And I want you to show up. Wendy's got something to say.
One of the things, Don's balance isn't what it has been in the past. And to be able to say, 95, he is still out in the garage using his power tools, doing whatever he out there wants. But because we love each other, when he uses the table saw, I was able to say, that scares me because your balance isn't really great. So can you come and get me, and can we do this together? And that's what love does, it's not always boundaries to kick something out, but it's boundaries that adapt to change and make life good. And so he's willing to come in and get me if he wants to use the table saw. And then nobody has to sit in fear.
Right, and because you're able to say that out loud, Dawn, I'm just saying, the idea isn't then oh, I can't use the table saw because Wendy will get mad. It's, I'm going to go get Wendy because I love her and I want her to feel good about this experience too. And so if she wants to kind of stand in the garage with me while I use the table saw, and that can create a loving atmosphere, then she can come stand in the garage during I'm assuming that's kind of a thought process going on. And you're like, yeah, I know he'll probably be fine using the table saw, but what if it's not? And it just makes me feel better to stand there and be right there if something happens. And so, yes, you create this loving space around this activity that could have been a constant fight and constant back and forth, and could be covered in all sorts of icky feelings. But instead, just putting some boundaries in place and expressing some desires from a loving place, we can work together and go, oh yeah, here's how we do this, and do it the loving way.
It's hard being unbalanced in life.
For sure.
Well, what another beautiful conversation that we've had about love. And so just, again, a reminder, in this season and every day and every moment, love is born in us. You guys, I have to say, I had pages of notes, and then, I don't know, I have these moments where I'm like, oh, what if the conversation doesn't kick off like I expect or whatever. So then I have the book and I have all these things highlighted, I'll just go to this book and read. And then we didn't even get through all my notes. This group is so amazing at sharing and bringing up new ideas. And so thank you all for always being that.
That's why we love you.
And then we will look forward to hearing what Wendy has to tell us at a later date. So I do want to say we're going to do announcements. Lisa told me right before we started, I wasn't aware yet, that our very dear friend, Richard Sigler, he fell on Friday and fractured his hip and has had surgery and is recovering from that. So if we can send him some healing energy and some good thoughts, I'm sure that would be appreciated. And there may be, I think he's still at the hospital, so the office probably has more details about that. Lisa just thought we would want to know, to be able to send some energy and surround him with lots of healing and expectation of fast healing and all the best prognosis. So our regular announcements, meditation every Sunday at 6 p.m. It's a time to quiet your mind and connect with your inner peace. The Navigating Grief Support Group meets on the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays of each month at 6 p.m. Their next meeting is this Tuesday, and all are welcome to attend. There's a recognition that grief can be intensified during the holidays, and this is a safe, compassionate space. All are invited to our Christmas potluck, which is on Thursday, which is Christmas Day at noon. Bring a friend and your favorite holiday dish to share and celebrate the joy of the season together. There's a sign up if you can put what you plan to bring, and if there's anyone that can get here early to help set up or stay and help clean things up, that would be great. I haven't looked at the weather to see if there's anticipation.
71 degrees.
Oh, well, then the shelter will not be open that evening likely. So that won't have to be completely set back up. Next Sunday during our celebration service, Dee Richardson is going to guide us through our annual tradition of the Burning Bowl ceremony. If you have been to the Burning Bowl before, you know how amazing it is. If you haven't, it's a very meaningful and spiritual ritual that just allows us to focus on release, renewal, intention setting for the next year. It's a favorite for many of us. And then our 9:15 New Thought Adult Education class is going to be Karen Crago, and her topic is being resolute. We are over halfway to our HVAC donation challenge. We're more than halfway. We only need another $840 to reach our goal of $5,000. And we have our donors who will match $5,000 collected, which will give us a total of $10,000 for the project. So if you want to stop by the table outside the sanctuary doors, you can see our thermometer with progress, and there's an opportunity for you to contribute towards that effort. The next Unity Drum Circle will be held on New Year's Day at 6:30 p.m. Everyone's invited to join. If you have drums, bring them. If you don't, there will be drums here that you can use. And then our next Friendship Sunday potluck will be January 4th. Bring a dish, sign up at the connection table. And then in January, we are electing 5 new board members. If you've been an active member for at least 1 year and are interested in the board, please pick up an application and turn it in by January 14th. As always, we've got a lot going on around here. So thank you all for joining us, and we will be complete with our class for the day. Thank you, Brenda, and we'll circle.